What unfolded in that Senate hearing will be remembered as one of the most pivotal moments in recent political memory. Ted Cruz stepped into that room expecting a routine takedown of a new congresswoman on national television. Instead, Jasmine Crockett delivered a performance so precise, so devastating, that it left the Texas senator in stunned silence and turned her into a household name overnight. It all began like countless hearings before. Cruz, known for his biting remarks and polished legal rhetoric, was seated at the committee table with his usual air of superiority. Across from him sat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas, a former civil rights attorney who had only been in office since 2023. Cruz clearly saw her as an easy target, but what she brought with her wasn't a speech, it was evidence. She came armed not with rehearsed lines but with facts, documents, and receipts enough to unravel Cruz's argument in front of a live C-SPAN audience. Cruz leaned in, expecting to dominate the conversation. Crockett stayed composed, knowing she had the upper hand. Their clash wasn't just a generational or partisan divide. It was a confrontation between two very different forms of political power, one built on pedigree, the other forged in the courtroom trenches. Cruz had the Ivy League credentials and years of Senate experience. Crockett had real-world experience fighting for voters in the very communities Cruz claimed to represent. The issue at hand was voting rights legislation Crockett had supported long before entering politics, and one Cruz had worked tirelessly to undermine. As the hearing got underway, Cruz launched into his usual strategy. Subtle insults, lofty legal jargon, and theatrical posturing meant to corner witnesses. But Crockett didn't flinch. When he tried to corner her on her congressional record, she calmly reminded him of her 15 years in court defending voting access, a sharp contrast to Cruz's years of speeches from Senate hearing rooms. When he waved around Texas's voter integrity laws, she countered with statistics on voter fraud: only 43 prosecuted cases out of over 17 million registered voters, and voter suppression, citing over 240,000 legitimate voters purged from rolls. As Cruz's frustration grew, so did the intensity of Crockett's responses. With surgical precision, she dismantled his talking points and exposed his contradictions, even pulling out Cruz's own legal filings and campaign materials to prove his hypocrisy. The real turning point came when Cruz, visibly rattled, resorted to personal attacks. He dismissed Crockett's arguments as emotional, accused her of playing identity politics, and questioned her understanding of how government works. That moment sealed his fate. With complete control, Crockett responded not with outrage, but with clarity. She pointed out exactly how Cruz's language reflected a broader pattern of condescension used for generations to silence marginalized voices. Then, methodically, she pulled out a series of documents proving Cruz had flopped on major voting issues using his own statements against him. What followed was a collapse of Cruz's legendary composure. He stammered, he fumbled, he could barely speak. Crockett, meanwhile, stood firm, calm, commanding, and unbothered. The impact was immediate. Clips from the hearing lit up social media. The moment Cruz sat speechless while Crockett dismantled his arguments became a viral sensation. Headlines blared. Analysts called it a masterclass in legal advocacy. Even Cruz's usual allies were silent. In the days that followed, Crockett's political stock soared. Invitations poured in from universities, legal organizations, and advocacy groups. Her fundraising skyrocketed. She was asked to lecture at Harvard Law, Cruz's own alma mater, where her comment about learning from real experience, not just textbooks, became a viral quote in its own right. Netflix, HBO, and major publishers expressed interest in telling her story. Law schools began using the hearing as a case study, and the phrase, "pulling a Crockett," started circulating among political commentators, describing what it means to calmly dismantle an opponent using facts and preparation. Even more important than the headlines was the renewed momentum behind the voting rights legislation Crockett had defended. Polls showed increased public support. Her performance gave clarity to an issue that had long been buried under partisanship and spin. As for Cruz, the fallout was brutal. His approval ratings dipped. Opponents used footage from the hearing in campaign ads. Conservative donors began to question whether he could still deliver. His carefully crafted image as a dominant debater had been shattered by someone he thought he could dismiss. What Jasmine Crockett proved wasn't just that she could take on a heavyweight like Ted Cruz. She showed that substance still matters more than spectacle, that preparation beats posturing, and that when someone walks into the room underestimated but overprepared, history can be made. The political world won't soon forget the day Ted Cruz was left speechless, and Jasmine Crockett, she just made it clear she's only getting started.